What's up, y'all? It's your boy Brose here, and I'm back with a new video. Today on the Brose Breakdown, we have a special guest here today.
Alphina.
Yeah, so you maybe saw her in a previous episode, and here she is again. So today we're going to be talking about problematic black people in high positions. So basically this is a topic on like that just because black people are in high positions doesn't mean they're good for it or they should be, because sometimes they don't represent us. So this is more so a call in and not really a call out. We're still going to keep it,
Cute, cozy.
Yeah. But, we still feel like this is a conversation that needs to be talked about and how everything's kind of happening, especially in today's time, what's happening in the world. So, first we're going to talk about representation, the importance, because before y'all get in the comments and saying, oh, what about this and that? We know. That's why we're going to address that. But we're also going to talk about things that we should be aware of and, things that we feel as though are not right. So, we know the importance of representation, but it's also understand that all skin folk ain't kinfolk. You already know that term. If you don't know that term, you probably should just click off the video. But visibility and validation ensures that black individuals need to see themselves in positions in various fields such as media, politics, business, and it validates your experience. Mm-hmm. I know when I was growing up, it was important for me to see black people in certain positions of higher power, but black people that cared about other black people in higher power. Mm-hmm. And would you say the same, or was like that wasn't, you really didn't think like that?
I feel like, representation matters for some people, but I also feel like the representation that I cared for was like the one that was in my immediate community. Like, I don't think I was like that excited. Like, if how this whole like new Marvel type stuff is going on. Like, I don't know if I get excited when I see like a new black character added to the mix. I would prefer for us to just create a whole entire different storyline instead of reinterpolating this whole situation. Like, even the Little Mermaid, like. It's cute. I'm happy we have a black mermaid, but why couldn't we just create a whole entire new show or movie that actually it gives her credit, where she doesn't have to fight to tell people that she deserves to be the black mermaid. So I don't know. I think representation matters, but I think the way we're going about it is just recreating the same cycles of the institutions that we're already in.
Yeah, I can see it more so being kind of like more so a shock factor.
Yeah.
More than anything.
For press.
Yeah,
exactly.
For press, not more so like the visibility portion of it. I mean, yes, we do see the dolls, and I think that's, very important. Seeing dolls, seeing action figures, but I can understand where you're coming from with the whole, a black mermaid.
It's cute. I'm sure little black girl's happy to see that, but it's not really doing much.
Yeah, you can't be a mermaid in today's time. I never know in the future, but it's good to see. I also say I feel like black people also offer, some of the most diverse perspectives. Representation brings different viewpoints and experiences, and it enriches the conversation, and it helps decision making on all processes and all levels.
Yeah.
So for me, I do feel like a black person should always be at that table when any decision is being made, especially in America. We built this. Come on now. I need to see that.
Fair.
Yeah.
And I think it's important. We do exist here.
Yeah. We're not just, we are here, right?
Yeah.
Inspirations and inspiring. This kind of just goes back to the first thing, seeing positive inspiration in your community and what you said, seeing it in your everyday life. Teachers, that's needed. Even in your representatives and council, I think, those are things that we see. Yeah, media is important for me because I'm a big media person, but for Alphina it's something different. So
yeah, and I think that media is obviously important, but I also think that the things that matter for a lot of daily individuals are having a black doctor be an option, or having a black lawyer to be an option, because we all know that there is systematic racism within the medical field, and even something as simple as a rash that would be on me versus on a white person. A white person wouldn't be able to decipher that rash more as a black person would understand I have a lot of melanin, so that could save someone's life. So it's and there's so many systematic barriers that stop a lot of people of color and black people from being in those positions, and I feel like we're not really getting into like the depth of that. But representation is media, of course, but also like a matter of like people who actually like affect our daily lives.
Yeah, beyond like the surface level type stuff.
Yeah.
I would definitely say quality and justice again.
When I say that more so, I mean like community wise, it's kind of hard because when I see black police, I just be like, really. But I get it, but then it's kind of like...
Oh, are you saying that there's certain places where you're like, I don't really want representation? Or like, you don't feel like a positivity towards
I don't feel
representation?
like, I don't feel like having black policemen is like positive representation, if that makes sense. Of course, character-wise, yes, everybody has a different character, but the whole system, like one black cop is like kind of like, okay, I'm going to try to change the thing. But you're like...
I don't know if many of them go in with that perspective.
Yeah.
I can't speak.
I heard some people, you always hear on social media like, oh, like, I'm a black cop and I don't do this, I don't stand for this, and I don't agree with this. Okay, you don't agree, but like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, are you holding your other cops to the cross? Or are you like being the person who, is trying to fight for that? Most likely no. The Tyree Nichols thing, like...
Yeah. I mean,
most of them are badge before black.
I also think that, like, there's, like, so much nuance with, like, the whole justice system. And to be honest, like, police officers are, like, small fry in the big whole ecosystem of, like, the oppression towards a lot of, like, black and brown people. Like, they're, like, the ones that, like, obviously, like, we're always, like, we come for police officers, which is, like, fair. But I also think, like, sometimes we don't really, like, dig deep and like talk about like the actual like justice system that like creates these entities to be necessary. And
I agree with you, but I also feel as though they're the ones that get their hands dirty more so than anybody. So
yeah, but it's also like, but think about this, it's like drug cartels. Like there's like the head chompo, and then there's like the people on the corner. Like obviously like the people on the corner, it's like they're the ones who are getting their hands dirty, but like it's like an order of command and chain, and they're not avoided from the blame. Like everyone has a blame, but it's just like sometimes I don't think we always like decipher like deeply like, oh, like what is the system like asking of us? Like, you know what I'm trying to say?
No, I see your point.
They're definitely not avoided from blame. I'm not definitely saying that. I don't want to be. Don't put that on me. Yeah.
I just feel like with them though, they get to choose what to do. If at the end of the day, morally, they get to choose what to do. So if you're choosing to operate like this, it's the head, but you're also making that cognitive decision of, okay, I'm going to listen to them and operate them instead of just doing my own thing, or like, okay, taking a step back from it. So
no, that's fair, but I also think like we in our last episode, like we talked a lot about like men and hypermasculinity, and like also like all of these issues are intersectional. Like the fact that some men decide like I want to be a police officer is also like in order to like feed that masculinity and that like oppression of like wanting to like be in those places of power and to do those immoral things or whatever the things that they do is also like in essence like tied to like all these structures that like benefit or make people feel more powerful when in essence like they're just like a pawn.
I get it. Yeah, they are a pawn. But they know they're a pawn, and they still choose to do it. Black people know they're being used as a pawn, and this is where we're going to get more so into that. The whole situation. And they're comfortable with that. And I feel like a lot of black officers know that they're being a pawn, and they're trying to show, oh, we're diversity, we hire y'all too. But again, these people make a little way for themselves, only try to do things for themselves, not for their community. And it also is a deeper conversation of like, black people always feel like we have to do stuff for our community, we all have to be activists or whatever like that. We should just want to live, and because our day-to-day lives are hard anyway. But being black is political, so we have to do that. I mean, whether you don't want to do it, you want to just live like Jaden Smith and don't give a fuck about race. I mean, yeah, sure, but like, no, you have to. Like, you have to, and if you don't, it's like you're an enemy.
Ooh.
Sorry. So my overall thing is black representation is essential in fostering like inclusive, equitable, and informed like society as a whole. But you also have to know is it can get problematic. And this is where we're stepping into. But anything you want to say before we wrap up that?
Oh, the economical piece?
Yeah, and the representation as a whole.
How do you feel about like advertisements that are like geared specifically towards like
Black people?
Yeah, that isn't necessarily like maybe like owned by Black individuals.
I think it's kind of like puppeteer in a way. Like, I don't want to sound like, I hate sounding so like, oh, I'm this and I'm a freedom fighter, like that type of guy, because everybody points me as to being that, and I'm not an activist, like at all. But I'm very like outspoken. I really care about these things. So when I see certain stuff like that, I'm like, okay, like I get the whole you're trying to be represented as giving Black actors and actresses opportunities.
Yeah.
But it's like, at what cost though? Like to drive the rich richer, to get the white people richer, you know?
I don't think anyone should be a billionaire, personally.
Me either.
And whether you're black, brown, blue, I don't think that should exist. I think that is just like such a bad marker of capitalism, and like the fact that it even exists says so much. You know what I get really upset about that is how there's like a lot of discourse about people being like, oh, but it's their money and they can do whatever they want with it, or like they're like people who are billionaires are like seen as glorified.
Yeah.
But like, when has gluttony been like something you glorify? Like, it's a sin. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's like
the biblical
yeah,
sense.
it's literally gluttony. It's like hoarding materials from people, and like when you start to see the vastness of poverty around the world, and these people have this money that they're gonna die with, like, and they're not gonna give it away. Yeah. So it's like, I don't understand like when, like, it just says like how much like the indoctrination in America to think, or just Western societies, that like to be selfish, like literally it's like, oh, like shout out to them, like that's so cool. But it's like, really, like, why aren't we like looking down and being like, when a little kid doesn't share, we're like, oh, you're not sharing. But when it's an adult, you're like, oh, like you deserve that.
Oh, there we have it.
And this is such a tangent, though. Mm-hmm. For some reason, when you're talking about media, I kept thinking about Wakanda and like the second one. Did you watch the second Wakanda?
I did.
And honestly, like to this day, like that was the one that really did it for me.
That you didn't fuck?
I didn't like that one at all.
Why?
Because I thought it was okay. So the first Wakanda, I honestly, like, you know, I respected it because of the, like, I love the fact that it was a matter of representation. I honestly didn't really understand the hype because I thought the plot wasn't that, whatever, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I was the second one, and I was really upset about the blue people, the water people underwater. I think that, like,
Are they Sino Indian? They're Sino Indian.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I think it was really crazy how, like, a movie that just was created to like build representation and build up Black folks, then decided for the people of like decided to create a diaspora of like people of color war. And I was like, how dare you turn us against each other?
I know.
That really hurt my soul. Yeah. I think the fact that it's like fighting, like people of color, we're not fighting with each other. So like the fact that
we're not,
no, like fighting for like freedom with each other.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, it's just like creating like this idea of like conquered and divide still.
Yeah.
And then I mean, I don't know where Wakanda 3 is gonna come out and if we ever prospered, but like
yeah. For me, I when I was watching it, I was just thinking about Chadwick Boseman.
Oh, that's so fair.
Like I was like hurt.
R.I.P.
Yes, I was hurt. Yeah, I definitely can see why you feel as though that, but for my thing, it's like it kind of was real though. You know, like you know, a lot of people of color, they don't like us, so it's kind of like they really don't. It's definitely performative. It's definitely, you know, it's anti-blackness rules the world.
Well, I think anti-blackness is a thing, but I wouldn't like go and say like people of color don't like us in general. I also think there's a lot of anti-blackness in the whole community. I think that there's just like a system of anti-blackness.
The Black community?
Yeah, there's people anti-black within our own community, so I don't know how we don't expect anti-blackness to like also be in other communities. But I mean, it's not ideal, but I think it's like also like a system of oppression, and how like unfortunately the way it is like the white supremacist forces had made it seem that Black individuals have to be like on the bottom, like all these other people, in order to like, whether it's reach whiteness or just reach their own form of like betterness, they like try to avoid being associated with blackness as much as they can. And even some black people do that. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and this is where, we're going to talk about that actually later in the video. But I think, but more so, I think I'm a little bit more disappointed than anything. I don't expect that, but I can more so try to have a conversation and like.
But I feel like just because, like, if anyone's anti-black, you have the right to have a conversation with them.
Yeah, but sometimes I'm like, I don't care about you, so it's like, why? You know what I mean? Like, I don't care that you don't like us. Like, who cares? Like, I don't need your acceptance anyway.
Okay.
From other black people is more so, we're a team. You know, we're trying to uplift our community, have equitable resources, spread out, divide.
Yeah, but even as a team, like, that's also, like, a very, like, I think that's what they want.
What?
Like, the powers that be, like, they want us to see ourselves as, like, a team that is, like, super siloed within ourselves, because if that's the case, then, like, I'm not going to, even though I know that, like, I'm not going to want to, like, band with other people of color or even, like, black people from the diaspora, because I'm, like, I have my own things I got to do.
No, I don't mean just black Americans. I mean black people from the diaspora.
But there's some, like, black Americans who believe, or, like, even...
Like, black Brazilians, black people in the whole continent of Africa.
The reason why I bring that...
Yoruba,
The reason why I bring that up is because, like, even, like, historically, like, you know, the Marcus Garvey situation, like, Pan-Africanism, like, that was, like, a really big deal. And then, like, the 1960s happened, and then that just ended because they're like, hey, let's just, like, focus on the... Like, obviously, like, what was happening in America, like, was awful, and, like, they needed, like, complete focus on that. But ever since that, I feel like there hasn't ever been any more discussions of, like, bringing on that Pan-Africanist view of, like, a black collective as much. And, like, there's so much diaspora.
And I think we should. I think we should. I think we all should bring on, we're black as a whole, no matter where we come from, what country we come from, what language we speak. Mm-hmm. We should always be a team. And when I say that, though, I don't mean like, oh, fuck them, fuck the other team, because no, it's important for us to come together and band together. But I'm talking about more towards the ones who don't like us. We have because of ourselves, but allies did help. I would never not acknowledge that, and I would love to have that, but I'm also going to acknowledge, if you don't fuck with us, don't.
I mean, I just think that it's not a matter of, like, not liking us, but a matter of, like, just the disease of, like, what oppression and racism is.
Yeah. I mean,
like, and, like, you meet so many reformists, like, I'm not trying to, like, be like everyone is just, like, some people are just, like, pretty, like, evil with it, but, like, there's a lot of people who grow up in, like, spaces where they're, like, taught to be, like, racist.
And I always say, that's what I always, sorry, you're talking.
No, you can go ahead.
No, that just reminds me of the thing I always say is all white people are racist because they're taught that it's ingrained in their body. Now, it's what they do with it after. And I see that for people of color. Like, I've been around all races, you know, different ethnicities, like, you know, white Latinos, indigenous Latinos, mestizos. I've been around.
You've been around a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of people. I can name them all, and I do notice they all have been taught. Just from how I know, I'm like, oh, like, how's your family? Like, I ask those questions, and like, is your family, like, you know, they're either like colorists, which is, you know, a big thing, and, you know, that disproportionately affects black people. If they're colorists amongst themselves, they're definitely going to be colorists against us. You know, we are darker people, so they're either colorists or they do have some anti-black history within our family. So I acknowledge that, and I'm not afraid of acknowledging that. But if people are allies and they want to help, absolutely. Because my other races or ethnics who are going through injustices, I definitely would speak up for that.
I mean, like, I think everyone has their own battle with, like, unpacking racism and unpacking, like, anti-blackness and stuff like that. And I think, like, once, like, that demon is figured out, then, like, we could all work together to, like, end our collective oppression. Because it's, like, everyone is facing some form of oppression. Even, like, white people are facing oppression. I don't think we talk about that. It's, like, if your freedom lies in my subjugation, then, like, you're not free, because you're always recreating the rules. Like, because, like, as we all know, like, this is a great example, like, even with the ending of affirmative action, it's like, we got somewhere, like, we got that win, and then it's like, oh no, like, you guys are doing too well. And then, like, they have to always keep, like, conniving and thinking about, like, how do I change the board, the pieces, and, like, it's like a chess game. So it's like, the only way all of us could reach collective freedom is, like, when we're actually, like, vibing, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, so you're more so, operating off of like, you know, you want all people people of color more so to come together, and those who are white to end this.
Yeah, because it's a disease. That's a systematic way of thinking that like my power lies in someone's subjugation.
Yeah, and I agree with that. But
just because some people are like being racist and whatever doesn't mean like I'm asking you to do that work. Like that's not work that like that's too much.
You're asking what you mean?
Like, you know, like how a lot of like black people would try to do the work to like help people like unpack their systematic racism and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I think that's like too much for the psyche, for us. Like we've been doing that for a long time. I think it's about finding like those allies who are really like focused on like unpacking that racism and doing that work in their own communities as well to like help fix the issues, if that makes sense.
No, I agree with that. All right, so let's talk about the plague in the community as black people and our black diaspora. Which falls into being like into tokenism, which is it was formed in television how black people used to be like put on those like be kind of like a caricature and to perform like minstrel shows for like white people, but it's
isn't it white people who are the ones who are wearing blackface?
Yeah, but there was also black people doing like
the
caricatures and acting like doing the most to
like it's caricature.
Yeah. So it can be like any minority put into a mix to create some sort of publicly viewed diversity. So any black person put into a setting, you're like, oh, we have diversity. Oh, I have black friends, or you know that whole thing. So that's what tokenism is, and I feel like a lot of us kind of fall into that tokenism thing because we want to see that at the table. Once we get that seat at the table, we kind of just shut the door. Nobody can enter, or they want to be the only one, that only one mindset because of what white supremacy told us there can only be one. Which it shouldn't be the case. You should always try to open the door for your fellow black people because it's not a threat, and a lot of it's been ingrained in us that it's a threat. So that's why we're having this topic of all black people who are in these spaces shouldn't really be in these spaces because they don't operate in a way to bring other people on. And what would you say towards that?
I would say that like it's really complicated. I think a lot of black people of color, like they go into these spaces with the idea of wanting to like create a difference and create a change, and then they get jaded over time. So it's kind of like you realize that in order for me to like get to point A, like I have to go by these rules, and then it kind of leads like you to compromise aspects of yourself in order to like get that seat at the table, and then you kind of diminish the purpose of like why you did it in the first place. But I also think it's like a real question of like why do we want seats at certain tables? Like I think this whole desire like we need to sit at the table, but it's like it was like that's like a specific table. It's like you're asking, like you would need to gain certain acceptance to even like get there, and to do that again cause that compromising. So it's like why can't we create our table? Like we're so focused on like being a part of these systems instead of like whether it's creating new systems or like just burning it down and building it back up.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I think a lot of the times a lot of people are like, "Oh, we don't have the resources," but we are making the resources now. We're in a position, we're in a better position than we ever been in terms of like resource wise, but in terms of like knowledge and community wise, I feel like we're kind of not in the worst, but in one of the worst states we've been in. And I'm not saying we should all have the same type of views. Because we're always going to differ, but I think the overarching goal and plan should be getting us out of being disproportionately affected, and then we're helping others as well outside when we start, of course, inside our community, but also outside our community too, because I feel like sometimes we get to certain places and it's like, oh, like I look down on that or something like that. Like I said, and I wrote this down too, I said some of us like to adopt a white supremacy mindset. And white supremacy culture, just to give you guys like some info on it, it's like it's an all oppression of capitalism, sexism, like we said in the last video, class, gender oppression, ableism, ageism, Christian hegemony. That's more so like people should adopt the Christian mindset, and
like the evangelical situation.
Yeah, exactly, and shun out other religions when that shouldn't be it. Even in Christianity, your God says accept all and don't bash others. So why are we doing that? these are more all interconnected and intersected and stirred together to create like a toxic brew of things. And I also want to talk about some characteristics that a lot of people don't have. And I'm gonna be so real, some of these things I've seen in myself. You know, like perfectionism. Like we have this whole thing of we need to be perfect to fit in this thing, like the perfect body. That whole muscular thing, that's all looked at as like in a white society. You're supposed to have this build, blonde hair, blue eyes, a straight narrow nose, straight hair. You know what I mean?
I do think there's something wrong to an extent of like wanting those things.
Well, like straight hair, like a 613 blonde wig.
I would say that if you're doing it just for like expression, that's cool. But if like you don't feel comfortable without it, then that's like a thing that you should probably
look more
deeper in. And something I also like get really interested about is like this whole conversation of like futurism, and it's like it's just a question because I see like a lot of like videos of like some people who are like you can deem them attractive, but I guess they'll be like they have smaller features even if they're like dark skin, light skin, like it's not a matter of complexion, but they're black women or black people, and then they'll be like, oh, that's only because of they have like Eurocentric features. But I think we should be very clear that like those features are black features, like you know what I mean, like black people have like a very diverse mold of looks and appearances, and it's like that's like that is blackness too, like you know what I mean, so like let's not like diminish that and act like it's just like a Eurocentric feature, even though like I understand that it's closer to what Eurocentric people think is beautiful, but like that is still like blackness and black features, like you know what I mean.
I get that, and I think it's like it's always 2 points to it because it's like yes, there are black people who have straight noses and like smaller lips, right? But there's a lot of black people who do have the big nose and the big lips.
Exactly.
So I feel like unless they got work done, I don't think we should really.
But it really isn't even like there are people like in Africa, like a lot of East Africans have very straight noses, like you know what I mean, like, and it's not because of the Arabs came down and mixed with them, like that's just how they look like, you know what I mean. So I think it's just like blackness is diverse, like there's no need to like pigeonhole it in that way, like people like that's the beauty of being black is like there's so many versions.
Also, another characteristic that was brought up was quantity over quality. So like that's kind of like a white supremacist perspective because like you said before, having that power hoarding, wanting all of these to myself. Look at this country. Like this country is an example of quantity over quality, like you know, wanting to get as many things done so quickly, or having all of this stuff and wanting all of these things instead of just thinking about like our roads are terrible, like why is that, or
even just like consumerism. Like people are always consuming, like buying new things, like even if like when it's really like instead of like or even fast fashion, like it's quantity over quality. And I can agree to that too. Like I'm a person who consumes it, but then I also feel like there's so many like arguments you could say about fast fashion because it's like what about you know when you do thrift and you have the means to buy you know other things, like are you taking away from those who don't have it? And then if you do buy expensively, like are you contributing to capitalism? So it's like I mean, everyone has a role to play.
Exactly. So it's kind of like
hopefully like minimizing it. But.
Exactly. Worshipping the written word is another thing too. That's kind of like a form of white supremacy. They kind of hold value to what they put as what has been documented when a lot of it's kind of like it's been manipulated.
Even oratory, like you know how like in a lot of like countries in Africa, like they don't write like stories, like they just tell them, like, you know what I mean, you just pass that down, and that's like not valid. It's like because it's not like written.
That's crazy. I didn't even like know that. And then individualism, again, not being open to community-based practices. You know, it's a lot when it comes down to black people being in positions. But if you're a black person in these high positions, realize something. You are black. 1. 2, you need to realize that, you know, you have power, you have influence, so use that to the best of your abilities. You should never compromise your values and seek community, seek refuge. A lot of people, you don't know, a lot of people will come to your support, especially if you go through things like that.
I mean, it's also just like, again, kind of going back to the whole billionaire thing we're talking about, is like, in order to get there, like, you have to do a lot of stuff, you have to, like, exploit a lot of people, and it's like, at the end of the day, like, a lot of them don't go to bed happy at night, or they don't go to bed, like, or in their deathbed, they don't have, like, they're a lot of family nearby, or more so like the people that you did it for, like they're not gonna be there to rock with you. And like
Exactly.
if anything were to happen and any controversy is to happen, like the people that stick behind you are not the people that got you in those positions. So it's like remembering at the end of the day that like all this is temporary personally.
Yeah.
So like if you can't sleep well at night behind it, then it's not worth it personally. And
yeah, so this is more so a call in, not a call out. We need to do better when we are in these positions and recognize our privilege and our power. But thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. We want to continue this conversation down below. And you know, if it's good and it's well, we're going to have more people on and continue the conversation. Thank you guys. Anything you want to say before we wrap up?
No, I had a good time.
Yes. All right, y'all. See you on my next one. Peace.